Something is watching us, not from behind the clouds or in the cold quiet of our oceans, but from the velvet blackness between the stars, silent, patient, hidden, and perhaps present all along. We've spent lifetimes peering skyward with outstretched hands, crafting instruments that listen for whispers on cosmic winds. But the deeper we look, the more profound the silence becomes. Could it be? Not that there is no one out there, but that they are choosing not to speak. Ancient traditions across the world speak of watchers from the heavens, celestial beings who descend only in times of great need, or who simply observed, dispassionate, removed, almost godlike. In myths, they come cloaked in light or wrapped in thunder. In science fiction, they float in sleek ships just beyond the edges of our detection. But in both, they remain out of reach. We are about to explore an idea as eerie as it is elegant, one that challenges our very assumptions about our place in the universe. This is the zoo hypothesis, a theory that suggests we are not alone, but are being deliberately isolated, like animals in an enclosure, watched from a distance by an intelligence so advanced it does not wish to be known. Along the way, we will journey through ancient ruins whose stones defy modern explanation. We will gaze at star maps carved into forgotten monuments, and we will ask, as countless astronomers before us have asked, if the galaxy should be teeming with life, then where is everyone? And perhaps, most unsettling of all, we will consider the possibility that they are already here on, have always been. So, let us begin. Each night, as twilight deepens into a star-pricked tapestry, the Milky Way arches overhead 200 billion stars burning in quiet majesty. Our galaxy alone contains more suns than we can imagine, and yet, through all of it, the universe remains hauntingly still. For more than half a century, since 1960, we have turned our most powerful radio telescopes skyward. From the Arecibo Observatory to the Very Large Array, we have strained to detect even the faintest signal of intelligent life. And though we've scanned tens of thousands of stars, parsed millions of data points, and combed through decades of ambient galactic noise, the result remains the same: silence, deep, complete, and absolute. But mathematics, ever cold and impartial, insists this cannot be. Our galaxy is over 13 billion years old. Earth is a mere infant by comparison, having formed only 4.5 billion years ago. That means countless worlds had billions of years to evolve intelligent life before our little planet even existed. If even 1% of habitable planets spawned intelligence, and 1% of those civilizations survived long enough to transmit radio signals, then the stars around us should be echoing with their voices. The cosmos should be alive with song, and yet we hear nothing. This eerie contradiction is known as the Fermi paradox, named after physicist Enrico Fermi, who asked the question that still haunts scientists today: where is everybody? If alien civilizations exist, the math almost demands that they do. Why have we never seen them? Why have they never visited us? Why haven't they, even once, picked up a phone and called? Some posit that every intelligent species self-destructs before it reaches the stars, consumed by war, climate collapse, or technology it could not control. Others suggest that the barriers of distance and time make interstellar contact nearly impossible. Perhaps even the speed of light is a prison no species can escape. But these explanations feel incomplete, for they require that every civilization across billions of years and across hundreds of billions of stars makes the exact same fatal mistakes over and over again? Is it really so likely that all advanced life follows the same doomed trajectory? Imagine a great city at night, apartment towers stretching endlessly into the distance. According to our models, many of these should be lit from within, their windows glowing, their inhabitants alive and active. But when we peer through the cosmic darkness, we see only unlit silhouettes, no lights, no movement, no signs of life. It feels intentional. Radio waves travel at the speed of light. A signal from a star 50 light-years away should reach us in just 50 years. Since 1960, our listening radius has expanded steadily. Civilizations within that sphere should have had ample opportunity to detect us and respond, and yet there is only silence. Is it possible we are being deliberately ignored, or worse, contained? The zoo hypothesis offers a disturbing yet oddly comforting answer. We are not alone, but we are being observed, quarantined, perhaps, until we reach some threshold of maturity. Just as zookeepers limit interactions with wild animals to avoid disturbing their natural behavior, these cosmic watchers might be choosing to remain hidden, monitoring us silently, waiting for something, perhaps a test, perhaps a warning, perhaps an invitation. And while this theory stretches the boundaries of conventional science, it's not without precedent in ancient human memory. In the high Andes of Peru, nestled among clouds and mountains, stand walls made of stone blocks weighing more than 100 tons each. These are not rough, primitive constructions. These stones, found at sites like Aircut with such astonishing precision that you cannot slide even a sheet of paper between them. They lock together not in simple square forms, but with complex, many-sided interlocking angles. Each stone fits into the next like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle, creating patterns so precise that even with today's technology, replicating them would be a formidable challenge. Mainstream archaeologists attribute these feats to the Inca civilization, remarkable builders who, according to our textbooks, worked with no wheels, no iron tools, and no written records of engineering. And yet, they shaped granite with glass-smooth finishes. They transported stones weighing more than 60 modern cars over mountainous terrain. They built without mortar, and their structures have survived centuries of earthquakes that toppled modern buildings nearby. Local legends speak of giants, of great beings with powers beyond comprehension, of stones moved with sound and thought, not muscle and wood. Most scholars dismiss such stories as myth, but standing before those silent, ancient walls, one cannot help but wonder. Because these wonders are not confined to Peru. Thousands of miles away, at Baalbek, in Lebanon, foundation stones weigh more than 800 tons, so massive that even modern cranes strain to move them. In Egypt, the Great Pyramid contains granite blocks quarried hundreds of miles away, somehow transported and placed with breathtaking accuracy. On Easter Island, the Moai statues, each weighing up to 80 tons, were said to have walked to their destinations, guided not by men, but by spirit. Each culture tells a different story, and yet the fingerprints feel the same. Across continents and across time, ancient builders created monuments with shared traits. Stones of impossible size moved impossible distances, fitted with impossible precision, and then the builders disappeared. No blueprints, no records, no clues. If such construction techniques were passed down, Why were they never replicated? Why do these achievements stand as singular anomalies, unmatched even by the civilizations that followed? It's as if some unknown teacher came, built, and vanished. And then consider the stars. Many of these ancient sites align perfectly with celestial phenomena, solstices, equinoxes, the rising of Orion, the Pleiades. Monuments around the world seem to be stargazing eternally, locked in astronomical poses that required deep understanding of math, geometry, and timekeeping. The alignments are too precise, too consistent to be accidental. Could it be that they were built not just to honor the heavens, but to communicate with something in them? Now, return to the modern age. In 1886, the first practical automobile trundled down the road, clocking in at just 10 miles per hour. Barely 83 years later, humans walked on the moon. That is the most rapid technological leap in recorded history. In less than one human lifetime, we went from horse-drawn carriages to spacecraft that broke the bonds of Earth's gravity. From oil lamps to nuclear reactors. From letters written by candlelight to instant messages bouncing between satellites. The Wright brothers achieved powered flight in 1903. By 1969, we had landed on another world. The sheer speed of that progress is breathtaking. Now imagine a civilization that had a 1,000-year head start, or 10,000, or 1,000,000. To them, our most advanced machines would seem quaint. Our greatest accomplishments would resemble a child's first steps. If they exist, they would wield technologies we can scarcely imagine. And if they did not wish to be seen, we would never find them, just as a mouse cannot perceive the zookeeper behind the glass. We may be unable to detect the presence of watchers whose understanding of reality transcends our own. The zoo hypothesis is not proof, but it is a possibility, one that threads together the silence of the stars, the mysteries of ancient stone, and the strange, recurring echoes of cosmic watchers in our most sacred stories. Perhaps we are not alone. Perhaps we never were. But until the day comes when the watchers choose to reveal themselves, if ever, we remain inside the enclosure, dreaming, wondering, reaching out with trembling hands toward the stars, hoping that one day something might reach back. Sleep well, fellow traveler, for the night sky is not empty. It is simply quiet, and sometimes that is far more unsettling. In the soft hush of forgotten millennia, beneath the dust of stone tools and crumbling clay tablets, there was once a world where time moved slowly, where change, when it came at all, came not like thunder, but like the whisper of wind across ancient plains. The wheel, humble, perfect, eternal, turned for over 5,000 years with barely a hint of change. Invented around 3,500 BCE, it rolled along through the centuries almost exactly as it had been shaped on that first day by clever hands and dreaming minds. And writing, that most powerful of inventions, rose not in a flash, but like a tide swelling over long generations, scratch by scratch, symbol by symbol, as humans etched their thoughts into clay and bark and stone. This was the rhythm of our ancient world, slow, patient, cyclical. For tens of thousands of years, a person might live and die surrounded by the same tools, the same carts and sails, the same firelit nights and spoken myths as their ancestors. Progress moved on a scale too glacial to witness. A child born in 100 CE would live their entire life in a world indistinguishable from that of their grandparents. The clothes they wore, the plow they used, the horse they rode, the stories they told, all echoes from a timeless past. But then, something changed. Around the year 1750, as if a hidden door creaked open, the slow and steady rhythm shattered. The Industrial Revolution began, not with a roar, but with steam rising from warm iron, gears clicking into motion, and coal cracking in the heart of a furnace. And from that moment onward, time itself seemed to quicken. Steam engines gave birth to railroads. The whinny of horses gave way to the shrill whistle of locomotives. Telegraph wires stretched like cobwebs across nations, transmitting thoughts faster than any man could ride. Light, once bound to fire, now burst forth from filaments, banishing the dark with the flick of a switch. Cameras captured memory in silver salts, and each discovery seemed to blossom into another, like branches on a tree suddenly growing toward the stars. It was as if some unseen hand had provided us a blueprint, a roadmap of invention laid out step by step, as though we were no longer fumbling in the dark, but walking a path already lit. New ideas appeared, seemingly unbidden, in different parts of the world at the same time. Independent minds developed the same machines, the same theories, the same solutions, all as if answering a question whispered on the wind. Between 1880 and 1920, in the blink of a cosmic eye, came radio waves, X-rays, radioactivity, quantum theory, relativity, and the discovery of the atom. These weren't mere refinements of older tools. These were seismic shifts. They required knowledge far beyond what any single culture had once imagined. Calculus, theoretical physics, and abstract mathematics were no longer the province of philosophers and isolated thinkers. They were now taught to students, published in papers, shared across oceans. Universities that had once taught only arithmetic and Latin were now launching generations of minds into the abstract realms of electromagnetism, subatomic particles, and space-time curves. And the acceleration didn't stop. The transistor was born in 1947. Just 11 years later, the integrated circuit. By 1971, the microprocessor. In 1980, the personal computer found its way into the world. By 1990, the Internet, and in 2007, smartphones, tiny glass rectangles, placed the knowledge of empires into the pockets of everyday people. This rapid cascade didn't resemble the plodding path of human discovery we once knew. It looked like a carefully timed sequence, as if, perhaps, someone or something was gently nudging us forward. What if this explosion of knowledge was not entirely of our own making? What if we have been receiving subtle guidance, not from divine inspiration or ancient ghosts, but from watchers, silent observers, minds far older than ours? Imagine a world within a world, a preserve, a sanctuary, a garden surrounded by invisible walls. This is the heart of the zoo hypothesis, proposed by radio astronomer John Ball in 1973. It suggests that we, the people of Earth, may be like animals in a vast, carefully tended wildlife park, watched but not touched, protected from interference, left to evolve on our own. In this cosmic Yellowstone, advanced alien civilizations might be the park rangers. We, the emerging species, are being studied from afar. Contact, for now, is forbidden. Not because we are unworthy, but because we are still in the fragile dawn of our development. The silence we encounter when we scan the stars, the so-called Fermi paradox, may not be due to a lack of life. In fact, the galaxy may be teeming with it. Intelligent civilizations may abound, but they have all agreed, do not disturb the children. And so, from the shadows of space, they watch. This hypothesis, simple yet profound, explains 1,000 puzzles at once. It offers a reason why no alien signals have reached us, despite the mathematical certainty that we are not alone. It explains why, in a galaxy perhaps brimming with life, we have heard nothing but the quiet hum of stars. The zoo hypothesis is built upon an idea deeply human, the ethic of preservation. On Earth, we already practice it. We protect endangered species. We fence off nature reserves. We leave certain lands untouched so that ecosystems may flourish as they have for centuries. We observe, but do not interfere. Galactic civilizations, far more advanced, would likely do the same. Earth, then, becomes a biological and cultural preserve, not because we are primitive, but because we are precious. The rangers watch us grow, documenting our progress, stepping in only when strictly necessary. If a disease threatens the whole herd, or if a forest fire looms too close, perhaps, every now and then, they have intervened. Perhaps strange lights in the sky, curious stories from ancient texts, and unexplained aerial encounters are glimpses of their passing. Brief intrusions, monitoring expeditions, no more disruptive than tagging a dolphin or darting a lion. Mathematics offers support for this scenario. Game theory suggests that across the stars, it would make logical sense for civilizations to agree on a universal non-interference policy, just as a human nation might sign a treaty forbidding the hunting of whales. So too might galactic societies form pacts. Do not contact primitive worlds until they are ready. And how do they determine readiness? Maybe it's not about spaceships or skyscrapers, but about harmony. Perhaps they watch for a moment when we no longer threaten ourselves with our own technology. A moment when we outgrow the need for war, when we tame artificial intelligence, not with control, but with understanding. A moment when we explore space, not for conquest, but for connection. Our civilization is still young, barely 10,000 years since the first fields were tilled, the first stars charted. In cosmic terms, we are infants, but we are learning fast. We now stand at the brink of nuclear power, of artificial consciousness, of interplanetary travel. These are the thresholds. These are the moments when the watchers lean in a little closer. Physical traces, viewed through this lens, begin to whisper new meanings. UFO sightings, unexplained materials, ancient myths of sky beings. They become footnotes in the margin of a larger story. Not proof, but possibility. Not hoaxes, but hints. According to the zoo hypothesis, contact will not remain forever forbidden. It will come, eventually, not as invasion nor salvation, but as an invitation, an acknowledgement, a welcome. But first, we must prove we are ready. And the question rises like a morning mist. Why would such advanced beings care? What could they gain from preserving us? The answer is perhaps the most beautiful of all, because once they too were like us. Every advanced civilization, no matter how grand, was once small, unsure, filled with questions. And just as we preserve ancient temples, rare languages, and endangered species, they may preserve us, not for what we are now, but for what we may become, within our culture, our dreams, our songs, our art and philosophy. There may be perspectives even they have not imagined. Unique solutions to universal problems, paths they never walked, ideas they never dreamed. A single human language contains 1,000 metaphors for love, sorrow, and joy. What might an entire civilization contain? To the watchers, we are not merely primitive, we are irreplaceable. And so they wait. They wait for us to pass our tests, to find peace within ourselves, to tame our machines, heal our divisions, and step carefully into the wider galaxy. Not as children demanding answers, but as partners offering questions. And when that day comes, if it comes, perhaps we will find them not far away at all. Perhaps they've been here all along, behind the curtain of stars, patient and quiet, waiting for us to notice and to understand. Until then, we continue. The wheel turns still, but now it spins faster. The fires of progress burn bright, and somewhere out there, in the deep silence between the stars, eyes are watching, not with malice or indifference, but with hope. For we, like them once were, are becoming, and in our becoming, the universe watches its own story unfold again. In the silent reaches of the cosmos, where time stretches and light lingers for ages unbroken, there may exist minds older than stars and hearts wiser than any script written in the dust of planets. For such civilizations, the emergence of younger life, of fragile species just learning to lift their gaze beyond their world, might stir something beyond curiosity. It might stir memory. To protect a young species is not only an act of mercy or guardianship, it serves purpose. Civilizations far older than ours may recognize that the youngest voices often sing the freshest songs. Even in realms of near-omniscient intellect, novelty has value. Human creativity, our emotions, our contradictions, the strange pathways we walk between logic and dream, may offer insights that no machine nor mathematical theorem can replicate. Art, music, myth, and madness all twist into something original, something uniquely human. And so, from a distance, perhaps in shadow or cloud, someone watches not to conquer or correct, but to wait, to observe the unfurling of our minds and morals. In this, we might be part of a tradition, an unspoken law passed down across epochs, where every species, once protected, becomes the protector in time. There is value in slow growth. A species that rises without help remembers the climb. It knows the feel of stone beneath its fingers, the hunger that drives discovery, the failure that births understanding. Those who ascend through trial rather than inheritance grow stronger, wiser, more self-aware. To grant fire too early to a civilization unready is to risk immolation, not illumination. Mathematical projections, cold and silent though they seem, whisper that diversity strengthens. Just as ecosystems flourish when varied, galactic civilizations might bloom best when their members are diverse in thought and design. A young civilization, untouched by convention, may stumble upon answers that centuries of settled thought would never dare consider. New approaches to energy, different visions of computation, new ways of walking the stars, not through conquest, but through cooperation. But protection is not only for the nurtured, it safeguards the whole. Premature contact could disrupt the delicate balance. A species not ready might panic. It might lash out in fear or kneel in blind worship. It could turn desperation into violence or strip alien knowledge for selfish gain. Cargo cults, false prophets, technological addiction, these are not myths, they are predictable consequences. And so, those who watch, if they exist, must hide. They must become shadows in the sky and whispers in the waves. To reveal themselves would be to disturb the natural rhythm of our becoming. There may also be a debt being paid. Those now wise may once have been as naive as we are. They too might have stared into the stars and wondered if anyone out there saw them. Perhaps they were once protected, given space to grow, to become who they were meant to be, and now it is their turn to stand guard, to give that same sacred silence to others. To interfere is easy, to wait is harder. But waiting grants independence. A civilization that solves its own problems stands taller, stronger, less likely to crumble in the storm. It becomes not a dependent ally, but an equal partner. If this silent system of guardianship is real, then we are not alone, not in theory, but in fact, and someone must be watching now. Above the clouds, beyond radar, within the quiet hum of our atmosphere. And indeed, signs have appeared. Not myths passed from elder to child, but sightings confirmed by instruments built not to dream, but to measure. Military, pilot-strained, sober, skeptical have reported objects unlike anything known on Earth. Objects that defy physics as we understand it. They outpace our jets. They turn at right angles, mid-flight, without sound, without inertia. They descend into oceans without splash or resistance, vanishing beneath waves as though slipping through glass. In 2020, the United States Navy released gun camera footage. The images were stark, simple, but impossible to ignore. Spherical craft moving in ways no engine could explain. No exhaust, no wings, no propulsion, and yet motion precise, deliberate, fast. These were not seen by one man in the night, but by many. Independent sources confirmed them. Radar detected speeds beyond 3,000 miles per hour. Cameras caught identical paths. No heat, no smoke, no signal of propulsion. Pilots, radar operators, and infrared imaging all sang the same strange song. Something was there, something real, and more than that, something intelligent. These objects did not drift or flounder. They moved with purpose. They maintained formation beside aircraft mid-maneuver, as if anticipating the next move before it occurred. They approached, retreated, responded, not randomly, but reactively. They appear, again and again, near sensitive sites, nuclear facilities, high-security laboratories, experimental airfields, places where humanity's most advanced creations dwell. The pattern is too deliberate to dismiss as chance. The Pentagon has acknowledged this openly, not as alien visitors, but as phenomena that defy current understanding. Briefings to lawmakers speak of technologies that elude explanation, objects that demonstrate propulsion without reaction, acceleration without fuel, flight without sound. What's more, these sightings are not new. They have increased in frequency since humanity crossed key thresholds, first atomic, then orbital. During the Cold War, reports poured in from missile silos, test sites, submarines. In some cases, these strange craft allegedly disrupted systems, disabling weapons in ways that remain unexplained, not destroyed, not attacked, just disabled. As if someone was keeping a hand gently on the world's most dangerous buttons, making sure no one pressed them too soon. Imagine the implications. Something with technology thousands of years beyond ours. Yet they choose not to land on the White House lawn. They do not demand surrender. They do not speak. They only watch. They only observe from a distance with restraint. This is not the behavior of conquerors. It resembles scientists or guardians, or perhaps something even more ancient, a kind of cosmic ethic that we do not yet understand. Pilots have spoken of these craft anticipating their moves, not just reacting to control stick motions, but seeming to read intent, as though monitoring not just our machines, but our minds. Wherever humanity pushes forward into space, into power, into new discovery, these objects follow, not in fear or aggression, but in quiet observation. It is as though we are being documented, studied, perhaps even evaluated. And these appearances are not isolated. They span continents. They transcend language. Russian pilots, Chinese sailors, Brazilian farmers, American generals all describe the same phenomena, the same shapes, the same behaviors, the same impossible speeds and silences. This is not legend anymore. It is data, radar echoes, infrared signatures, correlated reports. It is no longer just witness accounts. It is instruments designed to measure the measurable, confirming the inexplicable. Governments around the world, even those who rarely agree on anything, now quietly accept that something is in the skies. Not human, not explainable, and not going away. But could this be the first time we have seen them? Across the dusty vaults of human history, tales echo. In every culture, on every continent, there are stories of beings who came from above, who watched, who taught, who vanished into light. In the Hebrew tradition, they are the watchers beings sent from heaven who observed mankind, who walked among us in ages long forgotten. They possessed knowledge beyond imagining, yet obeyed rules of distance and restraint. They interfered rarely and always at a cost. The Book of Enoch, long excluded from most biblical canons, tells of these beings in extraordinary detail. Of flight between realms, of seeing without being seen, of machines and knowledge that would not exist again for millennia. Older still, the Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, sky beings who came not to rule but to observe, to record, to note the rise of agriculture, the shaping of cities, the birth of writing. They had flying vessels, strange tools, knowledge of stars and medicine. They walked among men, but were never fully of them. The Hindus knew them too. In the Ramayana, the skies are filled with Vimanai's flying machines, powered by strange forces. They could vanish, they could hover silently, they could change shape. The descriptions, written thousands of years ago, read like the blueprints of what pilots now chase above the ocean. In China, the stories speak of dragons, not monsters, but wise beings of air and fire, who flew with intelligence and purpose. They came during times of change. Dynasties rose and fell beneath their gaze. And among the indigenous peoples of the Americas, across dozens of tribes separated by geography and language, there are stories of the star people, visitors from the sky who watched, taught, sometimes healed, but always left, never staying, never ruling, only watching and waiting. These patterns repeat, descriptions align. From tablets of clay to sensors of silicon, the mystery remains unchanged. It is tempting to dismiss such stories as metaphor, as myth. But perhaps, through the lens of modern knowledge, they are more than that. Perhaps they are memory, not perfect, not clear, but true in essence. And so we arrive again in the present, under skies not so different from those our ancestors stared into with awe and wonder. Still, lights move where they should not. Still, machines fail where they should not. Still, we are watched, not with malice, not with domination, but with ancient patience, as though we are part of a garden not yet ready to bloom. as though someone is waiting for the flower to open in its own time. We are not alone. We may never have been. And high above us, hidden in night and silence, someone may still be watching kindly, cautiously, quietly waiting for us to become what we are meant to be. Long ago, before the hum of machines and the gleam of satellites in orbit, there were whispers, whispers that drifted on winds across the vast deserts, jungles, and icy plains. Whispers of beings, not of this earth, watchers from beyond the stars, whose presence haunted the periphery of human memory like half-remembered dreams. They came not to conquer, not to rule, but to observe, silent and remote, as if bound by laws far older than our civilizations. They moved through the world as shadows cast from celestial heights. From the red sands of Australia, the Aboriginal Dreamtime speaks of sky beings elders from the heavens, who have watched over humanity for tens of thousands of years. Their stories speak not of warships or invasions, but of watchers, entities who navigated the sky with impossible ease, flying craft that made no sound, no wind, no fire. These beings bore the tools of knowledge and eyes that saw beyond skin and stone. And yet they kept their distance. They followed Law's ancient cosmic rules of non-interference rules designed to protect the natural unfolding of our species. Across oceans and across centuries, in the ancient lands where the Nile once reigned supreme, the Egyptians carved stone into story. On the temple walls of Dendera and Abydos, there are images puzzling to the modern eye of objects that seem eerily familiar: flying discs, strange bulbs, and figures descending from the sky. The sacred texts speak of gods and messengers who arrived during pivotal moments of Egypt's rise. Yet they rarely interfered. They watched, they waited, they whispered secrets to the chosen few, then vanished like stardust on the breeze. Far away, in the heart of the jungle, the Maya too remembered. Their codices, etched in paint and glyph, told of feathered serpents who could fly, who bore knowledge of stars and seasons far beyond human reckoning. They came not just in myth, but in memory, appearing at moments of transformation. These serpents, more machine than beast, moved with purpose and restraint. The descriptions they left behind include striking technical details: propulsion, noise patterns, flight behavior, all eerily similar to what modern pilots and radar operators would later report. How could such ancient people know such things? And what is most curious, most unsettling, perhaps, says how these stories align. Civilizations that never met, languages that never mingled, beliefs that danced to entirely different rhythms, all told the same tale. Beings from the sky, observers, travelers, who never stayed, yet always returned. They came during transitions, moments of social evolution, bursts of invention, cultural awakening. The same pattern that now echoes in our own strange modern sightings, where unidentified craft appear not in idle skies, but above nuclear silos, space launches, and military installations. Ancient people left more than stories. They left mysteries in the soil, artifacts that do not belong to any known age. In Romania, an object was uncovered buried beneath layers of sediment laid down over 200,000 years ago. It was metal, aluminum, a material that requires complex refinement processes and immense heat processes our civilization only mastered in the late 19th century. But this object was no crude lump. It bore the hallmarks of machinery: precise cuts, symmetrical edges, and a form that suggests purpose. Metallurgical analysis confirmed it was alloyed, deliberately created, and encased in geological layers from the Pleistocene epoch when humans still chipped stone and feared fire. It should not exist, and yet it does. Nor is it alone. In Turkey, steel tools have been found embedded in rock formations over 60 million years old, far older than even the earliest primates. These tools show signs of shaping, of being cast and sharpened. In California, a geode cracked open revealed what appeared to be a spark, PLUG, complete with ceramic insulators and a metal coarse yield in a formation dated to over 500,000 years ago. Radiographs show internal structures identical to 20th century ignition systems. In France, tubes were discovered buried in limestone from the age of the dinosaurs. The tubes were threaded, as if made for screws, with uniform thicknesses that imply precision casting or machining. Their composition matched alloys only made in modern smelting facilities. Coal miners across the world have encountered similar impossibilities: delicate metal artifacts, finely worked tools, even decorative items embedded in coal seams formed 300 million years ago. These seams crush everything within them under unimaginable pressure. Yet the objects emerge unbent, untwisted, untouched by time, as if placed deliberately and protected by means beyond our comprehension. Some of the most unsettling finds involve materials unknown to modern science. Items have been unearthed with isotopic ratios not found naturally on Earth. In some cases, the crystalline structures within these objects could only be created under controlled laboratory conditions that simply did not exist in antiquity. Some researchers speculate these may have required nuclear processing or advanced particle manipulation. Dating techniques, carbon-14, radiometric assays, stratigraphic context all agree. These items are old, not centuries old, not even millennia, but impossibly ancient. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of years before the wheel, before the plow, before fire lit our nights. The implications ripple through everything we think we know. These aren't just curiosities from forgotten tribes. They are technological artifacts that seem, in many cases, to surpass even our current abilities. How could primitive societies have manufactured such things? They couldn't. So we are left with a narrowing list of possibilities. One is that human history is far older and more complex than we realize. Another is that we were visited, observed, studied, and what's more, they seemed to come not just in isolation, but in cycles. In the quiet hours of the 20th century's long twilight, something extraordinary began to unfold. With trembling fingers and eyes wide open to the cosmos, humankind dared to reach beyond the veil of its ancient sky. The Apollo program, a crown jewel of focused intent and boundless ambition, showed what could be done when all our scattered energies converged with purpose. In less than a single decade, the dream of interplanetary travel, once the province of poets and prophets, became real. Bootprints pressed into the dust of another world. The void, for a moment, gave way. This was no simple feat. It was the culmination of an awakening that had begun not long before, an explosion of knowledge, like 1,000 stars flaring to life. Theoretical frameworks, once beyond reach, began to crystallize. Electromagnetism, quantum mechanics, and the strange time-bending revelations of relativity emerged not as scattered insights, but as parts of a great hidden pattern, each, in its time, opened new doors, and beyond each door lay an age of marvels. These concepts, esoteric as they were, proved to be the foundation stones for a tower that rose fast. Without them, we would have no satellite beacons whispering across the globe, no rockets piercing the stratosphere, no humming screens reflecting our thoughts. We would still be grounded, both physically and imaginatively. But with them, the earth began to shine, not just with light, but with signal. For the first time, our planet glimmered in the dark, visible to the galaxy, not only as a blue orb, but as a voice, a technological voice, calling outward. Some have noticed the curious rhythm of our progress. It doesn't always feel natural, too rapid, too synchronized, too clean. The theory quietly suggests that this acceleration, the sudden cascade of breakthroughs, was not entirely our doing. That perhaps, somewhere in the cold stillness beyond our reach, eyes were watching, waiting, and when the moment was right, when we crossed some invisible threshold, they nudged the course of our history forward, gently, unseen. When our earliest radio broadcasts slipped into space, they became messengers, crude, unshaped, but unmistakable, a signal that something had changed here, that this world, long silent, had begun to stir. And in some galactic protocol enchant, perhaps automatic, this may have been the signal that triggered the next phase. Assistance, not direct, but quietly threaded into our story, timed to feel natural, designed to look like progress, not intervention. Look at the internet, for example. A web spanning the world, conceived and built in what felt like the blink of an eye. Protocols like TCP, IP, complex in their dance, yet elegant in practice, arrived just when the world was ready. Fiber optics, threads of light weaving knowledge across continents. Satellite arrays, circling above like silent caretakers. Positioning systems that can tell you where you stand on a spinning world with impossible precision. All of it came together with startling ease. And look upward. From the first fumbling thoughts of rocketry to the Saturn V's thunderous roar, barely 2 decades passed. Today, private companies achieve in years what once took nations generations. They leap forward, not with baby steps, but in bounds. The barriers that once seemed insurmountable fall away like old leaves in spring. It's not unreasonable to wonder, were some of those barriers gently removed? The same strange timing can be seen in the rise of artificial intelligence. Neural networks, once a fringe curiosity, suddenly bloom into household tools. Machine learning accelerates, even as quantum computing peaks over the horizon. These advancements emerge not in isolated bursts, but as a wave, synchronized, steady, and suspiciously well-timed with the growth of our global networks. As though someone nor something waited for the planet to be wired before unlocking the next puzzle. Medical science joins the same rhythm. Genetic engineering, once the realm of fiction, is now precise enough to alter the very alphabet of life. Surgical robots, imaging miracles, and pharmaceutical precisional emerge alongside the digital and orbital revolutions. Different fields, different minds, yet they evolve in harmony. It is a choreography too seamless to be pure coincidence. If one entertains the thought of watchers those ancient eyes among the stars, then one must consider how such guidance might unfold. They would not speak openly, not yet, not while the child still learns to walk. Just as biologists build blinds to observe the heron, or conceal cameras in the canopy to witness apes at play. so too might advanced beings construct layers of silence around Earth. The goal: observation without contamination, influence without exposure. And to achieve this on a galactic scale, the technology required would dwarf our imagination. Their communication systems would not rely on radio waves. Those are far too loud, far too crude. Instead, they might whisper through quantum entanglement, folding dimensions, or vibrating strands of space-time itself. Their messages would ripple through the dark like wind through still grass felt, but not seen. There is, after all, a strategic logic to silence. Broadcasting openly reveals more than intent. It reveals location, vulnerability, and capability. In a galaxy where not all neighbors may be friendly, discretion becomes survival. The smartest civilizations would cloak their presence, encrypt their signals, and scatter them across the background noise of the cosmos. Their voices would sound like nothing at all. Consider the precision needed to maintain this quiet. Every participating civilization would have to update a shared galactic database tracking Earth's progress, our radio capabilities, our telescopes, our reach. Protocols would evolve in step with our awareness, always one step ahead. And somewhere in that vast silence, enforcement mechanisms would stir to action if someone broke the rule. A curious beam of alien intent would disappear before our antennas could register more than a flicker. Accidents, if they occurred, would be met with swift response, perhaps even punishment. The rules are old, the stakes high. To know, almost to the month, when we'd point our eyes toward the heavens and begin to understand, they would need models beautifully intricate that chart our every step forward, and they would adapt in real time, always watching, always adjusting. Some scientists, quietly and cautiously, have hinted at strange anomalies. Radio telescopes have found gaps in the cosmic noise-missing frequencies, odd patterns. Occasionally, a signal flares, bright and brief, only to vanish the moment someone tries to pin it down. Are these the cracks in the system? Glitches in the great curtain drawn across our skies? SETI teams have logged strange moments, a blip that seems promising, a pulse that raises eyebrows, then silence. If there is such a thing as a galactic internet, we would never detect it, not with our tools, not with our assumptions. It might exist in the folds of space, in the vacuum's subtle shimmer, in dark matter's whisper. It would be as invisible to us as a cell phone tower is to a butterfly. But for such a system to work, for these watchers to stay coordinated, they would need speed, faster than light. Quantum entanglement, once dismissed as curiosity, may hold the key. Information passed instantly across unimaginable gulfs. A signal here and a reaction there, with no time between. And what if we break through? What if, by chance, or genius, or both, we intercept something we weren't meant to hear? The system might have contingencies, fail-safes, a signal disguised as a pulsar, a message that dissolves the moment we study it, a false trail, elegantly designed, that leads us away. Yet even this might be part of something greater, a progression, a test. Perhaps the silence itself is temporary, not a wall, but a veilment to lift when the time is right. When Earth has proven itself ready, when the signals we send carry not just knowledge, but wisdom. In that moment, the watchers may step from shadow, or, more likely, they'll let us find them, gradually, gracefully. Earth has mapped its genome. Earth has pierced the silence. The protocols shift, the lights turn green. For millions of years, the the system has waited for this moment. Across hundreds of billions of stars, thousands of young civilizations flicker into being. And now, it is Earth's turn to be seen, not as an anomaly, but as a member of something greater. To manage, this is no simple feat. The galactic custodians, SIF, they exist would oversee a tapestry of immense complexity, entire species catalogued, their progress tracked, their worlds quietly shielded from harm. Their tools would be quiet, their hands unseen, but their present SIF realize the soft breeze that turns history's tide without ever leaving a ripple. In 1945, when we split the atom, perhaps a new file was opened in some distant archive. Earth now monitored. Since then, they have watched us change. They have seen our worst and our best. And maybe, just maybe, they are waiting for the moment when we are ready to step into the light and join the silence as its keepers. Until then, the stars remain quiet, but perhaps not empty. Long ago, in the deep hush of the cosmos, when stars whispered across infinite voids and galaxies turned slowly in their orbits like grand celestial clocks, the question of protection arose, not just of life, but of potential. Somewhere in the vaulted chambers of ancient minds that had witnessed entire suns born and buried, a single idea became law. The young must be shielded from the overwhelming touch of the elder, to preserve the fragile momentum of growth. A vast and silent system was conceived not of empires or invasions, but of barriers and observation. A galactic protocol, older than Earth's continents and colder than interstellar space, may now govern our skies. Its purpose is not conquest, but preservation. And its mechanisms are so subtle, so seamless, that we never know they're there. In this possible architecture of the stars, enforcement is not a loud decree, but a silent inevitability. If a civilization dared to violate the rules of contact, if it reached out a hand too soon toward an emerging world like our on it would not go unnoticed. Specialized enforcement units, gliding across the dark between the stars, would respond without hesitation. Their technology would be precise and elegant, capable not only of disabling ships, but of cloaking the entire incident in a cloud of plausible coincidence. What would seem to us a stray meteor or a misaligned trajectory might be, in truth, a gentle yet absolute rebuke from beyond. The laws such enforcers abide by would be impossibly intricate. After all, they must account for millions, perhaps billions of sentient species. Some of them might be carbon-based, like us, fragile and water-bound. Others could dwell in oceans of methane, or dance as waves of energy through clouds of gas. Some might hear in X-rays and see in magnetic fields. Their psychologies, cultures, and evolution would differ more than we can imagine, and so too must their protections. Humanity, then, would be a unique file in this cosmic archive. Our protections would not mirror those of beings who drift through the atmospheres of gas giants or shimmer in plasma form. Instead, our protocols would reflect our biology, our tribal minds, our creative chaos, our hunger for meaning. They would be tailored to our particular kind of danger, the kind that arises from a sharp mind in restless hands. To preserve us, the system would prevent both accidents and deliberate interference. Automated defenses might exist that intercept and deflect visiting ships without alerting their crews to the intervention. Navigation errors, equipment failures, sudden gravitational tugs each might be the invisible hand of a barrier doing its silent work. The traveler would turn away, puzzled perhaps, but unaware of the gentle warning whispered into their vessel's path. And should someone ignore the warning, should they attempt, knowingly, to breach the protected veil of a developing world, the consequences would be swift, not as retribution, but as preservation. The punishments might be unimaginable. Entire star systems rendered inert, or violators sealed away in alternate dimensions, places where time slows or splinters until meaning fades. In the quiet language of ancient law, deterrence is everything. But even punishment is just a part of something far greater. Because behind every rule, every interdiction, every silent redirection lies the architecture of detection. The watchers do not simply wait, they observe. Across the spiral arms of galaxies, through the cloudy hearts of nebulae, their eyes are endless. They would know not just what species dream of visiting forbidden zones, but who among them carries the thought. Thoughts themselves, perhaps, might be visible to them like sparks in a storm. Surveillance beyond our comprehension would monitor clandestine projects, military whispers, and scientific ambition. Not to oppress, but to prevent chaos from blooming where order is still tender. Their laws would rest not on assumption, but precedent. For what is a galactic civilization, if not a civilization of lessons? Over millions of years, they would have observed countless young species stumble into danger, unravel under contact, or lash out in fear. Their court records would be longer than the rivers of time, tales of beauty, of tragedy, of civilizations lost to the very knowledge they craved too soon. And from those records, a wisdom emerges. Premature contact is not a kindness. It is a theft of natural evolution, of cultural rhythm, of a species' right to find its own sky. We are protected, then, not out of condescension, but out of solemn respect, not because we are weak, but because we are not yet ourselves. So they watch. Not from apathy, but from care. Their archives might hold every language we have spoken, every war we have waged, every lullaby we have sung into the night. They would know us better than we know ourselves, our fears, our dreams, turned into machines. With that knowledge, they design protocols that match not what we are, but who we might become. Every scenario is tested. What would humans do if greeted by a being of light on a spring afternoon? How would we respond to a whisper in our dreams, to a strange craft on a mountain ridge, to a voice in the static of deep space? Each question becomes a variable in a vast equation of caution, and all of it must be coordinated across light years, across thousands of species, across time itself. Messages must travel faster than photons, decisions rendered in synchrony across galaxies. The logistics would be staggering, yet the silence remains. Somehow it holds. At the heart of it all lies the most fascinating suggestion, an invisible system of protection, older than our myths, encasing our solar system like a glass bell over a candle's flickering light. Not a wall we can see, not a beacon we can detect, but a system that nudges, redirects, misleads without ever revealing itself. Imagine this. A starship approaches from some distant system, its crew curious or reckless or lost. But as it nears, something shifts. Their navigation system shows no error, and yet their course drifts. The stars change position subtly. After a few days, they find themselves farther from Earth than when they began. No alarms, no flash of interference, only the long, quiet hand of a barrier that does not need to announce itself. Such a system could use gravitational manipulation, placing unseen masses in precise orbits around the edge of our solar system, warping space just enough to bend paths invisibly. These mass concentrators would be ghosts to our telescopes, but guardians, in truth, shaping the gravity around us like artists sculpting rivers. Another method might bend space-time itself. Craft nearing Earth would find themselves slipping through folds in reality, emerging light years from their intended path with no clear understanding of what had happened. Or perhaps their ships would falter, electronics fading, power draining as electromagnetic pulses quietly nudge them away. They would never know the source, only that Earth remained out of reach. The protection must be redundant, one system backing another, each layered like rings in ancient trees. Gravitational deflection might be supported by space-time distortion, then electromagnetic disruption, then final fallback mechanisms. Weapons powerful enough to prevent catastrophe, but subtle enough to never be seen. Could we have detected any of this? Perhaps. A strange signal dismissed as noise, a star's motion that defies expectations, a spacecraft whose path drifts without cause. But we would not know what to look for. The disguise is perfect, and yet even the most perfect defense system does not explain everything. For perhaps the real reason we remain unvisited, uncontacted, untouched is not because of what lies out there, but because of what stirs within us. Maybe first contact is not being delayed to protect us from them, but to protect them from us. Look at us as they might, a species locked in endless conflict, inventing ever more powerful ways to destroy. We have built weapons that could erase ourselves in hours. We have poured our ingenuity into tools of division and domination, and we have used those tools not in desperation, but often with pride. Time and again, we have shown ourselves capable of war, of conquest, of environmental ruin. We fight over borders, over stories, over the memories of our ancestors. We burn forests to fuel economies and poison oceans to preserve convenience. In the cold equations of galactic analysis, such patterns matter. Because if we were to step beyond Earth without change, if we brought our rivalries to the stars, what would follow? Would we colonize or exploit? Would we listen or impose? Would we learn or repeat? The verdict may not be final, but it is cautious, and so we are watched, not with malice, but with care. Our world becomes a test. Every war, every peace treaty, every shared song, every act of mercy or cruelty becomes a line in a ledger beyond the stars. They study our reactions to crisis, how we unite or fracture. Pandemics, disasters, global warming, all these are more than challenges. They are questions, and our answers are being recorded. The delay, then, is not silence, it is waiting, waiting for signs, not of perfection, but of potential, of readiness. And so we float, a blue planet wrapped in quiet, nestled in a vast and unseen architecture of care. The stars shine down without comment. The moon whispers through tides, and somewhere, perhaps just beyond our reach, the watchers watch. And they wait. Somewhere in the deep silence between stars, far beyond the warmth of our sun, the galactic watchers keep vigil. Their gaze does not burn or beckon. It simply observes, cool and constant, like the ancient eyes of the night sky itself. They have seen countless civilizations bloom and wither, planets cradle their children in starlight, only to lose them to fire, folly, or silence. And now it is our turn under the lens. Humanity has crossed a threshold. A quiet alarm was triggered, not with sirens or celestial thunder, but with the subtle pulse of radiation rising from deserts and ocean-deep launch, silo signals that marked our arrival at a dangerous age. When the first nuclear mushroom clouds bloomed like terrible flowers over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a ripple moved through the invisible nets of the universe. These were not just weapons. They were declarations of capability, of instability, of promise and peril bound in the same trembling hands. From that moment forward, it is likely we were no longer simply a curious species evolving in solitude. We became a potential risk, a species capable of ending itself, and perhaps someday others, for a galactic civilization that has witnessed millennia pass like ours. The sudden arrival of nuclear power on a young world would prompt intense scrutiny. We are no longer just builders of pyramids or breakers of atoms. We are test subjects in a grander laboratory, one where observation is constant and intervention is forbidden for now. But nuclear technology is only the first measure of our dual nature. There is another metric, no less damning: our struggle with climate change. A species that knows its home is burning, melting, drowning, and yet continues to feed the flames is a species still wrestling with its own reflection. Galactic observers, should they exist, would not miss the irony. We possess the technology to heal our world, to guide it gently into the centuries ahead. Yet we hesitate, we debate, we profit, and the forests fall. To those watching, this speaks not only of our science, but of our soul. A civilization that wounds its only cradle may not be trusted with the resources of other worlds. A species that endangers its own oceans might poison alien seas, unaware or uncaring. So the wait continues, and the watchers grow silent again. And yet, we reveal ourselves more thoroughly than we ever intended. Not through radio waves or rocket trails, but through something more intimate, our own reflection, cast upon the digital mirrors we've built. Social media, the internet, a vast mosaic of human thought, emotion, and behavior recorded in real time. We post, we argue, we confess, we rage, we love, we dream aloud for all to see. Our tweets are not just communication, they are telemetry. Each photograph, each search query, each comment thread, together they compose a living psychological atlas of our species. And what might those alien anthropologists see in us? Perhaps they see minds divided, tribes warring over illusions, a species that can simulate gods in silicon, but cannot trust its neighbor. A world where lies are currency, and truth too often drowns in noise. Perhaps they whisper to one another, these watchers, they are not ready, because in this swirling sea of data, one truth becomes clear. Our technologies outpace our wisdom. We have built a global nervous system, but not a global conscience. And so the delay continues, but it is not punishment, it is precaution. And it comes not with scorn, but with quiet hope. There may be milestones, softly luminous markers on a road we barely know we're walking. Sustained peace, not just the absence of war, but a deep cultural shift toward empathy. A world without hunger, not through miracle, but through cooperation. An economy that grows not through extraction, but through renewal. These are not utopian fantasies. They are thresholds, measurable, observable, and perhaps required before contact is allowed. A civilization that demands infinite growth from a finite planet might someday ask the same from a galaxy, and that would be a danger to all. But while we struggle toward these unseen markers, we are already being studied in ways we scarcely comprehend. Imagine this. Somewhere in the cold mathematics of the stars, there exists a catalogue of humanity, a living archive that records our every step, not from malice, but from fascination. Our surveillance networks, our satellites, our location trackers, all these tools we built for ourselves may serve another purpose entirely. They are the perfect instruments of observation, and we placed them in our own pockets. Our smartphones, glowing softly in our hands, are like biomonitors for a species-wide experiment. They record not just where we go, but what we seek, what we fear, what we love. They listen to our voices. They count our steps. They measure our heartbeats. And all of this data, flowing endlessly like rivers through a planetary nervous system, paints a picture more vivid than any alien probe ever could. Consider how scientists study animals in the wild. Hidden cameras, tracking collars, environmental sensors, every detail of behavior: who eats, who mates, who fights is logged, analyzed, understood. Why would we think our own watchers would do any less? But the brilliance of it all is this. We volunteered, we built the cameras, we carry the collars, we update the software. Our every purchase, every keystroke, every Google search reveals who we are in ways we cannot hide. And so the study deepens. Financial data reveals our priorities, what we value, what we hoard, what we waste. Medical records display our biology, our resilience, our weaknesses. Vaccination data shows how we respond to danger. Education systems track our minds as they grow and shift. And climate monitoring networks, those silent guardians of Earth's breath, reveal how we treat the very body that keeps us alive. To a distant observer, this may be the most extraordinary phenomenon of all. A species that built its own observation cage, then stepped inside and locked the door. And so, Earth becomes a laboratory. Not a prison, but a place of learning on both sides of the glass. For every signal we send, every self-revealing act brings us closer to an unspoken test. Will we survive ourselves long enough to meet the others? Even the stories we tell betray an eerie awareness of the rules. Consider the idea of the prime directive popularized by Star Trek, whispered first in the minds of writers, now embedded in the cultural soil of Earth. A law of non-interference, a rule that forbids contact until a species is mature enough to handle it. We treat it as fiction, but what if it's more than that? What if it was planted? The notion appeared not once, but many times, across countries and creators, all within a narrow window of human time. Just as we became visible, just as we began walking toward the stars, the timing is too perfect, too clean. Stories of galactic law, of memory alteration, of concealed visits, these are not random musings. They may be seeds, introductions, gentle nudges toward concepts we must learn to accept before they are reality. This is how one prepares a mind for the unfathomable. You wrap truth in fiction. You let it play out on screen, in novels, in whispered campfire legends. The watchers are not cruel. They are cautious. Just as a zoologist might hide behind mirrored glass to study a lion in peace, so too might our galactic neighbors watch from beyond the veil of perception, measuring our progress in secret. When contact does cometh, it comes, it will not be as thunder from the sky or saucers in the clouds. It will be quiet, familiar, like remembering something we were told long ago. Perhaps, in some strange way, we already know the shape of our first meeting. Perhaps we dreamed it before we were born. And so, as Earth spins beneath the watchful dark, we continue, building, arguing, loving, failing, rising again, all under the gaze of patient minds we cannot yet see. They are not waiting for perfection, only potential. And one quiet day, when the warheads are dismantled, the forests regrown, the oceans cleaned, and the digital shouting softened into harmony perhaps, then the silence will break, not with invasion, but with invitation. Our smartphones, glowing softly in our hands, are like biomonitors for a species-wide experiment. They record not just where we go, but what we seek, what we fear, what we love. They listen to our voices, they count our steps, they measure our heartbeats. And all of this data, flowing endlessly like rivers through a planetary nervous system, paints a picture more vivid than any alien probe ever could. Consider how scientists study animals in the wild: hidden cameras, tracking collars, environmental sensors. Every detail of behavior: who eats, who mates, who fights is logged, analyzed, understood. Why would we think our own watchers would do any less? But the brilliance of it all is this: we volunteered. We built the cameras, we carry the collars, we update the software. Our every purchase, every keystroke, every Google search reveals who we are in ways we cannot hide. And so the study deepens. Financial data reveals our priorities, what we value, what we hoard, what we waste. Medical records display our biology, our resilience, our weaknesses. Vaccination data shows how we respond to danger. Education systems track our minds as they grow and shift. And climate monitoring networks, those silent guardians of Earth's breath, reveal how we treat the very body that keeps us alive. To a distant observer, this may be the most extraordinary phenomenon of all. A species that built its own observation cage, then stepped inside and locked the door. And so, Earth becomes a laboratory, not a prison, but a place of learning on both sides of the glass. For every signal we send, every self-revealing act brings us closer to an unspoken test. Will we survive ourselves long enough to meet the others? Even the stories we tell betray an eerie awareness of the rules. Consider the idea of the Prime Directive popularized by Star Trek, whispered first in the minds of writers, now embedded in the cultural soil of Earth. A law of non-interference, a rule that forbids contact until a species is mature enough to handle it. We treat it as fiction. But what if it's more than that? What if it was planted? The notion appeared not once, but many times, across countries and creators, all within a narrow window of human time. Just as we became visible, just as we began walking toward the stars, the timing is too perfect, too clean. Stories of galactic law, of memory alteration, of concealed visits. These are not random musings. They may be seeds, introductions, gentle nudges toward concepts we must learn to accept before they are reality. This is how one prepares a mind for the unfathomable. You wrap truth in fiction. You let it play out on screen, in novels, in whispered campfire legends. The watchers are not cruel. They are cautious. Just as a zoologist might hide behind mirrored glass to study a lion in peace, so too might our galactic neighbors watch from beyond the veil of perception, measuring our progress in secret. When contact does come, if it comes, it will not be as thunder from the sky or saucers in the clouds. It will be quiet, familiar, like remembering something we were told long ago. Perhaps, in some strange way, we already know the shape of our first meeting. Perhaps we dreamed it before we were born, and so, as Earth spins beneath the watchful dark, we continue, building, arguing, loving, failing, rising again, all under the gaze of patient minds we cannot yet see. They are not waiting for perfection, only potential. And one quiet day, when the warheads are dismantled, the forests regrown, the oceans cleaned, and the digital shouting softened into harmony perhaps, then the silence will break, not with invasion, but with invitation. Drift, now, with Meath, through the long hush of cosmic silence. Let your thoughts dissolve like mist into the night, as we wander beyond the stars, into the realm of the unseen, the undetected, the quietly waiting. Long before we peer boldly into the heavens with machines and mathematics, we are told stories, fictions, at first glance, tales of great federations, hidden monitors, secret prime directives. And perhaps we believed them no more than bedtime legends, tucked between pages of science fiction and silver screens. Yet, gently now, the thought returns. What if fiction was simply the classroom, and we, the students, unknowingly trained for contact? For these stories, these echoes in our shared imagination, they speak of rules we were never taught in school, yet understand all the same. The prime directive, so often repeated in shows and games, has etched itself into the bedrock of our collective memory. To not interfere, to watch without touching, to guide by restraint, not conquest. And by the time we truly reach for the stars, we will already know what is expected of us. Is it so strange, then, to imagine that we are being prepared, not through sermons or signs, but through gentle dreams whispered in fiction? And when at last the veil is lifted, when the stars are no longer distant, we may not tremble in fear, for we have been guided in slumber, trained in stories for a reality yet to bloom. These tales serve not only as entertainment, but as quiet instruction. They prepare us not just for the moment of contact, but for how we must behave. As we grow into the role of cosmic citizens, should we ever meet a people more primitive than ourselves, tribal, emerging, delicate, we shall remember the cautionary tales of our childhood, of civilizations unraveled by premature contact, of hubris punished and wisdom delayed. We will hesitate, we will wait, because we were taught, and the teachings go deeper still. Within the structure of these stories lie blueprints of galactic councils, protocols of diplomacy, interstellar courts, and cosmic laws. Woven into scripts and novels, we find the scaffolding for how we might one day belong to something unimaginably vast. Is it all coincidence that such stories arose just as our species unlocked the atom, harnessed computation, and reached outward with radio waves? Or is it possible, just softly possible, that our storytellers were nudged, inspired by hands unseen, to plant seeds in our cultural soil? But if that is true, if such a program exists, to prepare us without our knowing, then these hidden civilizations must possess one more gift, the power to vanish completely. For all their watchfulness, all their preparation and patience, they remain invisible, not just unseen, but undetectable. Their presence, if it exists, is a whisper we cannot hear, a shadow we cannot trace. And yet, physics itself opens a door to their concealment. Quantum mechanics, mysterious and strange, teaches that matter exists in many states until observed. What if the watchers have learned to dwell in the probabilities we haven't collapsed? to phase between dimensions, slipping through the seams of reality like smoke between fingers. Consider, 85% of the universe is made of something we cannot see. Dark matter, the silent majority of existence. We feel its gravity, we know it is there, but it gives off no light, no sound, no warmth. What if advanced minds have harnessed this invisible substance? What if they build their cities from shadow? What if they sail on ships woven from unseen matter, slipping through our solar system without ever brushing our senses? And the light itself can be bent. We know this. Einstein taught us. Gravity can curve space like glass. A planet may hide behind warped starlight. So too might a vessel, if its masters have mastered the bending of light. Not only visible rays, but the entire rainbow radio, infrared, X-ray, gamma, all curved neatly around them, rendering them perfectly blank to every lens we raise to the sky. Dimensional shifting. Another tool in their chest could place them in spaces just adjacent to ours. We in 3 dimensions, they in 4 or 5 or more. We like flat paper, they like hands pressing lightly from above, felt only in dreams, and time, too, can be shifted. What if they operate faster, so much faster, that their lifetimes pass in the space between our seconds? A civilization could rise and fall between 2 human blinks. We would never notice. To them, we are frozen. To us, they are absent. But both would be wrong. Then there is gravity. Could they fold space-time upon itself? Wrap light and matter in silent curves that hide all trace of their work? And what if matter itself were changed, adjusted to vibrate at frequencies beyond our atom's ability to touch? Entire cities could float beside us, invisible, intangible, built of materials that pass through our bodies like fog through the trees. And even our minds might be edited. Advanced machines could intercept our thoughts, filter our awareness, gently erase the presence of something we were not ready to see. We might walk past a great tower, look directly at it, and see nothing at all, like the blind spot in our eyes, quietly corrected by the brain without our ever knowing. They may not even need to hide. They may simply stand where we do not look, predicting our patterns, shifting when we shift, ensuring that coincidence becomes camouflage. And if something falters, if one veil weakens, another takes its place. Cloaking gives way to shifting, shifting to perception, filtering to probability, always invisible, always beyond our reach. But such mastery demands energy, vast, star-swallowing power. And perhaps that is where their trail becomes visible. At the edge of the solar system, in the great emptiness beyond Neptune's orbit, our oldest travelers, Voyager and Pioneer, detected something strange. Pressure changes, magnetic fields behaving unlike anything predicted, subtle forces nudging their paths, not enough to alarm, but enough to wonder. The Pioneer probes slowed ever so slightly, as if brushed by a hand unseen. Not gravity, not friction, something new. Might there be constructs barriers, monitors, suspended at the boundary where solar wind meets the interstellar sea? Elsewhere, we hear whispers in the static. Background radiation, normally smooth, hums, with patterns not quite random, as if filtered, as if managed. Brief, not quite explosions, not quite stars, something else. Even gravity stirs strangely there. Waves ripple through the fabric of space, appearing without cause, not from neutron stars, not from black holes, but from fixed points in the dark. Solar wind, too, misbehaves. Particles arrive in patterns, geometric, deliberate, as though passing through gates. And so, as we drift now into dreams, consider this. Perhaps we are already surrounded. Perhaps we are already known. Perhaps we have been watched since fire first kissed stone. But they do not come forward. Not yet, because we are still learning, still growing. And in the stories we tell, in the films we love, in the myths we invent, they are teaching us, preparing us, so that when we finally step into the greater galaxy, we will not arrive as strangers, but as students who have studied well. Good night, traveler. May your dreams be filled with stars, and may the watchers smile quietly from the shadows, far beyond the orbit of our pale blue world, where the light of the sun fades into a gentle twilight. Ancient winds drift across the edge of silence. There, in the liminal boundary, where solar breath meets the cosmic void, something stirs. A storm of particles dancing without order. Yet, against expectation, the data whispers a different tale. Patterns, structures too precise for randomness, not the work of nature, but of intention. Hidden in these solar breezes, it seems, are the fingerprints of fields not made by stars. Artificial signatures, carved from energy and geometry, shaping the flow of charged particles like shepherds guiding flocks through the outer dark. These aren't solar echoes, they're signs markers of an invisible presence near the edge of our solar shell. Neutrino detectors listening not to sound, but to silence, interrupted. Occasionally, they register floods of high-energy particles coming from the deep cold, from corners of the sky where no stars flare. These bursts are brief, but rhythmic, too regular to be random, too focused to be natural. They seem to emerge from nowhere beyond Pluto, beyond the planetary stage. A realm not empty, perhaps, but quietly occupied by ancient sentinels that accelerate matter, not for war, but for watching. Like cosmic lighthouses, these possible constructs seem to pulse deliberately in the dark, whispering through neutrinos like silent drums in deep time. Infrared telescopes eyes that see warmth in emptiness have found quiet anomalies too. They observe patches of heat where nothing should be, soft glows lingering in the black. No stars, no planets, no comets to explain them. Just a kind of invisible architecture, exhaling warmth across the cold. The magnetic field, the invisible net drawn between planets and stars, doesn't behave as it should. At the heliopause, where our sun's dominion fades into interstellar space, the field doesn't dissolve. Instead, it sharpens, grows defined, forms patterns and corridors that ripple like silent paths mapped for unseen eyes. It's as if someone or something has drawn a line around our system, not to keep us in, but perhaps to keep others out. Energy patterns to favor certain orbit zones that would be ideal for watching Earth without revealing the watchers. The alignments are too tidy, the geometry too elegant. This is choreography. Even the vacuum, the nothingness itself, tells a strange tale. Quantum field sensors, fragile instruments that measure the soft tremble of space itself, have found fluctuations near the edge of the solar system that speak not of randomness, but of rhythm. The background buzz of empty space seems tuned there, as though something had gently rewritten the music of the cosmos at our doorstep. A soft intervention, a subtle reordering, but these whispers of machinery and magnetism are only the prelude. For if the cosmos has been tuned by unseen hands, then we too may have been composed, not by chance, but by design. Consider the rise of humankind. Evolution is a slow tide, sculpting life through countless waves of time, yet our ascent defies its rhythm. From primitive hominids to modern humans, capable of poetry, science, dreams, it happened too swiftly. In less than 3 million years, the human brain tripled in size. That alone is a song too rapid for nature's usual tempo. The mathematics stagger. The brain, with its 100 billion neurons and trillions of synapses, arrive not by slow layering, but in a creative flash, a spark in the void. Random mutation cannot account for this masterpiece. The odds defy logic. Something somewhere accelerated the process. Archaeology supports the mystery. In the stone and bone of our ancestors, we see leap-sudden, brilliant eruptions of ability. Simple flint tools give way to elaborate spears and delicate ornaments. Art appears, language unfurls, and symbolic thought takes root with dizzying speed. There is no ladder of gradual ascent, only abrupt steps into complexity. Our genome, too, tells a tale of interruption. Human genetic diversity is curiously narrow, suggesting that we all descend from a very small population, perhaps even a single tribe, a bottleneck, and not just any moment, but one coinciding with the rise of our intelligence. Could it be that a few were changed, and through them the world? Scattered through our DNA are sequences with no clear purpose. Labeled junk by early science, they remain mysterious silent pages in a book we haven't learned to read. Some wonder if they are dormant programs, sleeping blueprints waiting to awaken. Others suspect they are tags, markers of authorship left by unknown hands. We are overbuilt, in a sense, capable of things we don't need. Abstract mathematics, symphonic music, moral philosophy, of these are necessary to survive on the savannah. They serve no purpose to a foraging tribe, and yet we have them. Why? Language alone presents an enigma. No other species leaps the gap between signals and syntax. We didn't just learn to speak, we invented grammar, metaphor, poetry. Our words shape worlds. No bridge exists between the calls of apes and the architecture of human language. It appeared not as a hill, but a mountain. Fossils compound the puzzle. Evolution usually leaves trailsbones that show the slow drift from one form to another. But for us, there are voids, missing links, abrupt arrivals. New types of humans appear like sudden stars, no gentle transitions, no intermediary shades. Even our reproductive biology breaks the mold. We hide ovulation. Our childhoods stretch long, requiring years of care. We bond socially in complex, emotional ways. These traits don't help survival directly, but they do support learning, culture, continuity. It's as if we were built not to endure, but to grow. Genetics again offers a whisper. Recent mutations, to many, too fast suggest artificial tampering, not natural drift. And when we compare ourselves to Neanderthals and other ancient kin, we find DNA in us that came from nowhere. No shared lineage explains it. And through all this, in the shadows of our stories, float strange visitors. Ancient texts from across the earth describe beings from the sky guides gods, watchers who appeared just as our minds began to awaken. Were they myths, dreams, or something more? This genetic tale may only be one act in a broader epic, an intervention not of biology alone, but of destiny. What if humanity has been nudged, not just formed, but protected? There exists a concept known as the Great Filter, The idea that somewhere in the path from chemistry to civilization, most intelligent species destroy themselves. Nuclear war, ecological collapse, AI run amok. These and other silent endings are the common fates of worlds that rise too fast. The odds are grim. Simulations suggest most worlds don't make it beyond their adolescence. The pairing of power with immaturity is a fatal one, yet somehow so far we have survived. Could it be luck? Perhaps, but the pattern is strange. The moments of greatest peril always seem to resolve, just barely, just in time. Recall the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, near-miss nuclear launches. Computers misread the stars as missiles. Human hands hovered over annihilation again and again and did not press the button. Not once, but many times. How climate change looms to a slow crisis. Our technologies wound the earth, yet solutions arise almost as soon as they're needed. Solar power, carbon capture, environmental awareness merge like lifeboats drifting into view. AI offers another precipice, a technology that could surpass us, replace us. And yet, our pace of control matches our speed of creation. Protocols rise with power, restraints with risks. Biological warfare holds horrors beyond imagining. Yet, despite the means, no one has released the worst of what can be made. We've come close, but the final act never arrives. Even in the silent realm of social decay, where digital lies can unmake shared truth, resistance grows. New tools emerge, new ways to bind us back together. And all the while, the weapons of final war nuclear arms continue to spread. But they remain unused. Predictions say they must be fired eventually, yet they haven't been. Something holds the line. What if the hand that shaped our minds still watches? What if we are the garden and the stars, the walls? What if we are not alone, not just in the universe, but in our very becoming? The night sky remains silent. The stars offer no answers, but perhaps that silence is the answer itself. Not absence, but intention. A pause, not a void, a waiting. And in that quiet, we listen. There are moments in history, and perhaps in the long arc of civilization itself, when the veil thins, when something quickens since seen, yet unmistakable. A silent momentum begins to build, as if the stars themselves lean closer, watching, waiting, guiding. And so it was with the rise of modern technology, sudden bloom, swift and almost unnatural, sprouting in soil that had for millennia yielded only slow and patient growth. In the soft afterglow of World War II, the world had scarcely caught its breath when it found itself launched into the age of rockets, atoms, and microchips. What once belonged to dreams and myth machines flying through vacuum, voices leaping across oceans, minds speaking to machines became reality in a blink. The Apollo program stands as perhaps the most emblematic monument of this strange acceleration. In less than a decade, humanity journeyed from rudimentary rocketry to planting footprints in lunar dust. It was as if the cosmos had been waiting, silently holding its breath, until Earth at last cracked some invisible threshold. And once it did, the floodgates opened. We are told this came from sheer effort, collective ingenuity, and scientific discipline. And yes, those played their part. But the scale, the breathtaking synchronicity whispers of something more. Of timing too perfect, of knowledge arriving too swiftly. For what followed was not merely an age of progress, but an era of convergence. Theoretical physics, electromagnetism, quantum mechanics, and relativity all bloomed within decades of each other. Each unlocked not merely abstract truths, but immediate and practical realities. With them came the foundations of everything we now take for granted: electronics, telecommunications, computing, and spaceflight. It is as if a torch was passed in silence, and we, not knowing from whom it came, simply ran. Consider the rhythm of discovery, one that seemed choreographed rather than stumbled into. Earth, once dark and mute to the stars, suddenly began to glow. Our radio signals stretched outward, thin tendrils of inquiry cast into the abyss, declaring to any listening intelligence that something had awakened here, a spark had caught. Perhaps this is the moment some watching I was waiting for. Perhaps our transition into radio visibility is not merely a milestone, but a signal in itself, call that sets into motion a quiet orchestration of assistance. And yet, it would have to be subtle. It must always feel like our own doing. The illusion of independence must be preserved. For only in believing we are unaided does the story unfold naturally. This is the genius of hidden guidance. It leaves no fingerprints, only patterns, and the patterns are everywhere. Look to the architecture of the modern internet. The emergence of TCP/IP protocols, fiber optic cables spanning oceans, satellites forming invisible bridges in the sky, all arose with astonishing speed. These systems, unimaginably complex, did not evolve slowly, but seemed to arrive as a whole, ready and waiting. There was no long adolescence, only a sudden maturity. Coordination of this magnitude, one might expect, would take generations. But instead, it appeared as if an unseen hand had already drawn the blueprint, and we merely stumbled upon it. Spaceflight followed this tempo. From Gagarin to Armstrong, the heavens were breached in less than 2 decades, and today, private companies reach orbit in years, not generations. It's as though the obstacles have been removed in advance. No longer do we inch forward, now we leap. The same is true for artificial intelligence. Machine learning, neural networks, and quantum computing all flourished in tandem with the internet itself, as if some master schedule was being followed. The necessary infrastructure had to exist before the tools could bloom. Even our advances in medicine follow this uncanny cadence. Genetic sequencing, precision imaging, surgical robotics, and pharmaceutical revolutions unfolded side by side, sharing not only time frames but a strange synchronicity of need and discovery. It is coordination on a scale too vast to attribute solely to human genius. It is as though we are passengers on a guided path, nudged gently toward a future we did not design, but one that has been prepared for us. But if there are guides, they must hide their presence well. A civilization advanced enough to nurture from the shadows must also be wise enough to remain unseen. Silence becomes their signature. The absence of interference becomes their method. Consider how scientists observe wildlife in protected reserves. They do not barge in, they wait. They watch from behind blinds. They use hidden cameras and remote sensors. They interfere only when absolutely necessary. And above all, they remain quiet so as not to disturb what they seek to understand. On a cosmic scale, the same rules would apply. An interstellar civilization concerned with preserving the natural development of others would adopt stringent radio silence, not because they cannot speak, but because they choose not to. Their technologies would far surpass anything based on electromagnetic radiation. Radio waves are noisy and crude, like shouting across a canyon. Advanced beings would use quieter tools, quantum entanglement, perhaps, or gravitational waves, or dimensions folded neatly beyond our perception, silent, instantaneous, and undetectable. Their silence would serve not only to protect USPA, to protect themselves. For to speak openly across the stars would be to reveal location, capability, and intent. And in a galaxy that may not be uniformly friendly, discretion is not only wisdom, is survival. So if the galaxy is populated, as many suspect, then perhaps it is not empty at all. It is merely quiet, not because no one is there, but because they are watching, and watching closely, it seems. For radio silence is not a passive act, it requires immense coordination. Every participating civilization would have to track Earth's technological growth in detail. They would need to know when we become capable of detecting specific frequencies, and then adjust their emissions accordingly. This implies not only monitoring, but forecasting, predictive models of our advancement, a galactic database, constantly updated, charting the rise of human science, its instruments, its sensitivities. To maintain silence, every emitter must comply. Signals near Earth must be jammed, deflected, or masked to appear like random background noise. Breaches must be prevented and punished, for the stakes are high. To contaminate the development of a civilization, however accidentally, could derail its natural path. And so, somewhere beyond the veil, there may be enforcers, not of law, perhaps, but of protocol, guardians of the silence. Our telescopes, peering into the cosmic night, occasionally catch hints of something unusual. Patterns in the background radiation that defy easy explanation. Frequencies where none should be, gaps where noise ought to be constant. Some astronomers whisper of these anomalous signals that appear, then vanish before they can be studied. Brief flickers, like the closing of a cosmic curtain. SETI programs have recorded such things, signals so clear, so structured, that they provoke a jolt of recognition. But before they can be confirmed, they vanish. Perhaps these are accidents, failures in the system. Or perhaps they are bait tests or corrections. If humanity catches a whisper too soon, an automatic safeguard might activate, confuse, distract, erase. The true galactic internet, if it exists, would be wholly beyond our comprehension. It would not ride waves of radiation, but weave through the vacuum itself, through dark matter filaments, through dimensions as yet unnamed by human physics. Its signals would not echo in space, but resonate through the structure of reality itself. No antenna could hear them, no eye could see, but they would be there, constant, quiet, precise. Such a network would require communication faster than light. And here, quantum mechanics again hints at possibility. Entangled particles, two halves of the same thing, separated by distance, yet still bound in unity, could transmit information instantly. This is not science fiction, it is science fact, waiting for application. In the hands of a civilization older than stars, the technology would be refined beyond imagination. And perhaps they are not merely silent, perhaps layered beneath the silence are mechanisms to manage our awakening, fail-safes, alerts, systems that monitor not just what we build, but what we understand. Imagine, somewhere in the vast dark, a satellite receives a coded alert. Earth has discovered controlled nuclear fusion. And at that moment, protocols millions of years old awaken. Subroutines activate. A new status is assigned to humanity, not primitive, but ascending. Now, picture a galactic council, not a gathering of robes and faces, but a system, vast and digital, humming in orbit around a black hole or buried within a Dyson sphere. A civilization with computational abilities that dwarf every processor on Earth. Here, thousands of developing species are tracked, each with its timeline, its cultural drift, its milestones, its taboos. Each is protected in kind, and we are one of them. When we split the atom in 1945, perhaps that status changed. Perhaps Earth was flagged. Perhaps observation increased. Perhaps doors were unlocked, carefully, slowly, and what followed the birth of the transistor, the digital age, the space race, was part of the long unfolding, like a flower blooming only after the winter has passed. The image that returns, again and again, is that of the ranger, not the conqueror, not the master, but the quiet guardian, like those who watch over endangered animals from afar, recording, measuring, protecting, not out of sentimentality, but responsibility. And so perhaps we are not alone, perhaps we never were, but we are not ready to see the watchers. Not yet. They remain silent. For now. Each step in humanity's technological journey has followed a curious rhythm, too precise, interconnected, to be mere chance. Like the gears of a vast and ancient clock, each innovation seems to fall into place just when needed, as if some unseen watchmaker ensured no wheel turned before its time. Progress unfolds across disciplines, not as chaotic leaps, but as orchestrated convergences. Physics, chemistry, biology, computing. Each field blooms when the others are ready to receive it, like flowers timed to the same spring. And through this tightly woven lattice of breakthroughs, we sense a strange undertow, that someone or something knew the path before we walked it. For when we peer into the mathematics of invention, we find not the jagged path of random discovery, but smooth, arc-sidden upswings of progress that began not in isolation, but at a moment of cosmic significance, the mid-18th century. That was when Earth's flickering lights, radio quiet though they were, may have finally brushed against the edge of the galactic stage, when the watchers, if they exist, might have taken notice. And then, everything quickened. Obstacles that should have slowed generations dissolved. Problems that once stymied the sharpest minds found strange and timely solutions. As though hands invisible to us laid breadcrumbs just beyond the next hill. We were not simply progressing, we were being guided, but toward what? Some theorize that this acceleration is not an end, but a preparation, that humanity is being ready not for conquest or ruin but for admission, for evaluation against criteria we do not yet fully understand, crafted by those who perhaps once walked this same tightrope of emergence. Could Earth itself be a proving ground? Its suitability for life sets sheer perfection is difficult to ignore. The odds of such a planet occurring by chance in the vast churn of galactic dust are so minuscule that they strain credulity. Our world sits in the quiet cradle of a spiral galaxy within the narrow band known as the galactic habitable zone, sweet spot, dense enough with the heavy elements needed for chemistry and planets, yet far enough from the chaos of starbirth and death to offer peace. And within that peaceful zone, our sun orbits not through crowded stellar fields, but through a tranquil gap between the Milky Way's arms, safeguarded from gamma-ray bursts and other cataclysms that might have erased our fragile beginnings. The Earth itself, a miracle of balance, not too big, lest gravity crush the fragile bones of intelligent life, not too small, lest its atmosphere escape to the void. Its mass is just right, like the third bowl of porridge in an ancient tale, and within its rocky frame a molten heart turns. That geologic heartbeat drives plate tectonics, recycling the air, stabilizing temperatures, and maintaining a magnetic shield against the sun's fury. Without it, we might have become Mars cold, silent, and dead. Then there is the moon, ever present in the night sky, more than a muse for poets or a tide maker. Its size, its distance, its gravitational dancehall, uncannily perfect. It steadies our tilt, guarding Earth from chaotic swings that would otherwise scald or freeze our biomes. It slows our spin gently, inch by inch, toward a pace ideal for life to take root. Large moons like ours are rare, freaks of cosmic lucor, of careful planning, and Earth's water. Too much, and we'd be an endless sea, like Europa or Ganymede. Too little, and we'd be a desert stone, adrift in silence. But Earth is divided in elegant symmetry, oceans deep enough for currents to regulate heat, continents broad enough to cradle forests, grasslands, civilizations. A canvas painted for life, not merely smeared with it. Even our air defies expectations. For billions of years, our atmosphere has walked a tightrope. Enough oxygen to power minds and muscles, but not so much as to turn every lightning strike into a holocaust. Carbon dioxide cycles through plants, oceans, and volcanoes with sublime regularity. And when it wobbles, life adjusts, as if tuned to preserve the whole. The sun, too, plays its part with rare grace. Most stars flare, dim, or rage with youthful violence. Ours, however, is Placida, quiet yellow sentinel with a light as steady as a metronome. Not so hot as to strip our skies, not so cool as to plunge us into endless winter, just enough, and the magnetic field. Another narrow balance. Too weak, and cosmic rays would unravel our DNA. Too strong, and it would disrupt the subtle chemistries of life. Instead, it flows just right, protective, invisible, enveloping us like a shield fashioned long before any sword was forged. Even Earth's deep past hints at a stage prepared. Climate has fluctuated, yes, but never fatally. Volcanoes raged, asteroids fell, yet life endured, changed, adapted, and climbed. Not once has the great engine stopped. Not once has the music ceased. And as if in perfect time, when all conditions had matured, a strange thing happened. A clever ape stood up, looked around, and wondered why. Homo sapiens emerged not in an age of chaos or cataclysm, but in a moment of planetary harmony. Oxygen was high enough to feed our demanding brains. The sun shone bright enough to stir agriculture from soil. The ice had retreated, the stars were visible, and the tools of thought, language, art, memory began to take root. It was as though the planet had waited for us. But even that perfect stage, dazzling though it is, may not be the whole story. For no planet alone, no matter how fertile, can birth civilizations without time, peace, and guidance. We had to survive ourselves, and we had help, though from where remains uncertain. If a galactic zoo exists, if we are among the exhibits, then the management of such a cosmic sanctuary would defy anything our minds have yet imagined. For each world with life is not a dot on a map, but a system of billions of hopes, fears, thoughts, and dreams. To monitor them all, would require computers vast beyond reckoning, not just to observe us, but to understand, to model thought, to track cultural drift, to predict rebellion or genius. Such watchers would need to see not just our actions, but our intent. The data alone would eclipse the output of stars and communication. Across galactic distances, our radio waves are useless. The watchers, if they exist, must speak in methods unknown to us, faster than light, possibly faster than thought. To coordinate across the width of the Milky Way, signals must leap between arms in instants, not centuries. And what of prediction? To shepherd a species toward awareness, its trajectory must be known. That means calculating culture, biology, climate, randomness over millennia. It means simulating entire histories before they happen. It means knowing us better than we know ourselves. The infrastructure such management would require is staggering. Each protected world must be ringed with tools, silent, hidden, watchful, machines to block threats, correct trajectories, and perhaps intervene when darkness threatens to swallow the light. Maintaining such a web would cost more than gold or energy. It would demand trust. Trust that a species might one day join the watchers, that the effort will be worth the vigil. And who are the stewards? They would not be one race, but many. Some builders, some scientists, some teachers, some judges, experts in evolution, culture, ethics, and time. They would train for centuries, perhaps lifetimes, to understand Ustu, love us enough to wait. They would follow laws more complex than any Earth has ever written, statutes for when to intervene, when to let us fall, and when to lift us again, codes for every kind of mind, every shape of soul, 1,000 scrolls of empathy and caution. Their schedules would be a masterpiece of interstellar patience. Every act of help would be weighed, every silence measured. Their algorithms would balance risk and hope. When do you teach a child? When do you let them learn through pain? When is protection harm? When is delay death? Their calculations must juggle not just planets, but destinies. And behind all of this, looming like a shadow or a promise, is the great filter, that dark boundary that so many worlds may never cross, the war, the misstep, the silence, the one bad day that ends the song. To guide a world across that chasm is the ultimate calling. Their risk analysts would peer into the hearts of our cities, our sciences, our leaders, watching for signs. Are we ready? Are we too angry, too proud, too clever for our own good? Will we destroy ourselves before the invitation comes? And all the while we would suspect nothing, for their touch must be gentle, their influence subtle. They must allow us to believe it was all our doing, that fire and flight and freedom were born from our own minds, that the stars were always our destiny. But perhaps, just perhaps, it was all part of the plan. Perhaps someone long ago and far away looked into the void and saw a blue planet spinning quietly among the dust. And they said, not yet, but one day. And so they waited and watched. And now, maybe, just maybe, they listen still. Somewhere beyond the stars we see and the silence we feel, there may be an order, an organization older than time, grander than any empire we've imagined. Not a ruling council of conquerors, nor a pantheon of gods, but something far more intricate, a galactic management system tasked not with domination, but with guardianship, a network built not on power, but on patience. And if such a system exists, then it would need more than mere intention. It would require planning extraordinary. exacting planning across scales our civilization has barely begun to understand. Financial structures that stretch across stars, cost-benefit equations balanced not for years but for millennia, risk assessments and investment strategies calculated not for stockholders but for species. Such a system would not emerge by accident. It would be one of the most complex logistical achievements in cosmic history, capable of managing ecosystems across entire arms of galaxies, monitoring thousands of emerging intelligences, and preparing a handful, just a few, for the final steps into galactic citizenship. And we, the humans of Earth, may be reaching the final phase of that preparation. Every challenge we now face, the climate shifting beneath our feet, the machines growing minds of their own, the fragile balance of peace trembling with every border drawn, these are not just crises, they are tests, they are evaluations, designed not to punish, but to measure. We are being observed, like researchers evaluating animals before release into the wild. Our unseen overseers might be watching not just our technologies, but our behaviors. Do we cooperate under pressure? Can we solve problems without turning to war? Will we preserve the world we've been given or burn it down in pursuit of short-term gain? In the lab, animals are tested for their ability to adapt. Can they form social bonds, solve puzzles, survive without constant guidance? So too might humanity be undergoing similar tests, though on a scale we barely comprehend. The clustering of our global challenges is no coincidence. Political polarization, economic instability, technological upheaval, and environmental degradation, all intensified within a short span of decades, not scattered randomly, but converging, as if coordinated by unseen hands. A stress test for an entire species, because this is the moment of decision. We are developing space technologies that could soon take us beyond the safety of our cradle. Interstellar travel is no longer the stuff of fantasy. Within generations, we may breach the limits of our solar system. And with that breach comes a question: are we ready? No protected species is allowed to wander into the galactic commons untested. Before we're permitted to roam, we must prove ourselves. Graduation day approaches and, with it, the final exams. Artificial intelligence is one of them. The rise of thinking machines poses profound risks, not just to ourselves, but to the stability of any civilization we might one day meet. Those who watch us must wonder, will we wield this tool with wisdom, or will we lose control as children playing with fire? Our nuclear weapons are another test. For decades, humanity has lived under the shadow of its own power, able to end itself in minutes. And yet, so far, we have held back. Treaties were signed, warheads dismantled, fingers hovered but did not press. Galactic overseers, if they exist, surely take note of this restraint. Not perfect, but promising. Then there's the environment. Any civilization that cannot care for its homeworld cannot be trusted with others. Our stewardship of Earth is under the microscope. Deforestation, mass extinction, oceans warming and rising, all these are not just natural consequences, but signals. Do we understand balance? Can we restore what we've damaged? Do we know enough not to repeat these mistakes elsewhere? And what of our social fabric? Galactic civilization requires cooperation on scales we've never attempted. Do we fight with our neighbors? Or can we unite across nations, across cultures, across histories? Can we rise above our tribal instincts to form something global, even universal? So far, the evidence is mixed. We build towering structures of science, yet cling to ancient hatreds. We reach for the stars while poisoning the soil beneath us. We speak of unity, yet struggle to listen. But the watchers are not looking for perfection. They are looking for potential. Scientific independence is one such indicator. When we discover the secrets of nature on our own, when we build particle colliders, map genomes, decode gravity, proves that we are thinkers, not merely takers, that we can contribute, not just consume, that we will not simply beg for knowledge, but offer it in return. And beyond science, there is morality. What kind of civilization do we wish to be? One that enslaves, or one that liberates? One that hoards, or one that shares? Do we value justice? Do we protect the vulnerable? Do we resolve conflict through diplomacy rather than destruction? Galactic civilization, if it exists, has likely endured for millions of years. It would not tolerate the chaos of warlike newcomers. Peaceful conflict resolution, therefore, is essential, not just between nations, but within them, between classes, creeds, generations. Every riot, every coup, every treaty matters. Each is a data point in the algorithm of evaluation. Technological responsibility is another. It's not enough to create, we must control. Gene editing, AI, quantum computing, these are not toys, they are thresholds. Do we still see ourselves as Americans, Chinese, Africans, Russians? Or do we, at last, begin to think as humans, one species, one planet, one future? Galactic culture would not erase our diversity, but it demands a unifying identity strong enough to weather its storms. We must become Earthlings. Our economies, too, must evolve. The growth-autocracy model is a relic of youth. Galactic societies likely operate on sustainable cycles, not endless expansion. We must learn to live within planetary limits, to value balance over profit, to treat economics not as conquest, but as caretaking. And if we do, if we build stable space habitats, navigate the stars, manage resources with care, then we show practical readiness. Not just dreams, but blueprints. Not just hope, but engineering. That is what it means to graduate. Our communication systems must also evolve. Interstellar dialogue will require more than antennas. It will require empathy, language, translation, cultural exchange, conflict mediation. These are the foundations of a peaceful interstellar diplomacy. It's not enough to speak, we must understand. Our philosophy, too, must shift. We must think not in terms of centuries, but of eons, not of nations, but of biospheres. We must raise generations that ask, what is our place in the cosmos? What is our responsibility to it? Education will be the engine of that shift. Schools must not only teach math and reading, but planetary ethics and cosmic perspective. Children must learn not just facts, but how to live wisely on a world that is one among billions. They must grow up prepared not just for college or career, but for citizenship among the stars, because time is running short. The pace of our crises is quickening. The window to demonstrate readiness is narrowing. Whether orchestrated or coincidental, our final exams are underway. Every drought, every election, every technological leap is a question on the test. Will we pass? The answer lies in action. We must build the world we would want our watchers to see. One of courage, wisdom, restraint, and imagination. And if we do, then perhaps, one day soon, the silence will end. Not with thunder, but with invitation. Not with conquest, but with welcome. We began this journey wondering why no one speaks to us. Why the stars, though filled with light, offer no voices. Why the sky is so heartbreakingly quiet. But maybe the silence is the test. And now the final bell is near. We are being watched not for punishment, but for potential. Not for domination, but for invitation. Not as prey, but as candidates. The choice is ours, to remain in our cradle or to rise, to continue in confusion or to choose cooperation, because graduation day is coming and the galaxy is waiting.